lot of times the high performers, they kind of get a pass, that your culture really matches the lowest common denominators.
Where do you think that comes from?
People, if they're not held accountable, can act badly.
How do we humble these people to kind of almost like work collaboratively?
Lawyers are in the 90th percentile on skepticism. Law school does not teach you to collaborate.
Do you think that's a real gap that you wish lawyers actually would learn about, maybe even at law school or early on in their careers?
Most of the time, it's showing a mirror. It's holding up that mirror and saying, this is not okay behavior. This is what your behavior, this is how it's impacting someone else.
So how do you keep up with that? Welcome, listeners. I am Seb Wichmann, your host of the DoGood Insider, where we dive deep into raw and meaningful conversations with visionary founders, CEOs, CHROs, and learning experts who see beyond profits, elevating the lives of employees and vendors and the planet we call home. Today, we are joined by Dawn Anderson, a remarkable leader reshaping what a toxic-free culture looks like in the legal industry. As the CHRO at Butler Snow, Dawn brings a bold, human-centered approach to law firm HR demands, where culture is non-negotiable and even the highest earners are held accountable to the firm's values. The legal world is known for its high-pressure environment and psychological toll. Yet few talk openly about what that really means for the people behind the cases. So I believe Dawn does. And from addressing mental health issues to creating systems of support, she's leading with empathy, candor, and courage. In this conversation, we dive into what it takes to build a zero-tolerance workplace culture in a high-stakes field and discuss how other C-suite leaders can drive both performance and well-being. This, to me, is more than a conversation about law. It's about leadership that puts people first. So, Dawn, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, me too. So, we dive right in. And the way I like to start is to let the viewers know why I really was so excited to have you on, which is, you as the CHRO at Butler Snow, you have this principle that really stuck with me, which is that you don't tolerate jerks. These are your words, no bullshit. But the key here is not even for the high performers. And I believe that that is a point that a lot of companies miss. They usually fall through the cracks, right? Talk us through what that means to you and I guess, how this philosophy has shaped the culture at Butler Snow. Let's start there.
Certainly. And you're absolutely right. A lot of times the high performers, they kind of get a pass. They get the, oh, that's just him. And if you're ever starting a conversation or ending a conversation with just them, there's a problem because your culture really matches the lowest common denominator. So whatever you will tolerate, that becomes your culture. It is not what's written on the wall. It is not what's on your website. It is what you'll allow and condone. So Butler Snow has been based we're a Southern company. We started over 70 years ago in Jackson, Mississippi, and it was based on the premise of client first. Two firms came together and they said, we want to put our clients first. And we think that because if we do that, if we emphasize not greed, not personal agenda, not internal competition, but our clients' well-being, we will be successful. And that was over 70 years ago. Well, in order to do that, you have to build into the culture certain key tenets. One, we discourage internal competition, which is a root cause of a lot of that toxicity at different law firms. Most law firms, you eat what you kill is how they phrase it. So your compensation as a owner is based on the clients you bring in and the work you perform. So there is an incentive to hoard all that work and a disincentive to connect your client with someone who might be able to help them with a different problem they have than one you're handling. It also leads to that, rough elbows and I am bigger than you, I'm better than you, and the rules don't apply. We also believe that teamwork and collaboration is critical. You can't have a culture of teamwork and collaboration if people are being rude and disrespectful and just flat out mean. So we don't tolerate that. We do a lot of fun things when we have retreats every few years. Um, one of our videos, we'll do videos that we create internally. One of the videos had some of our attorneys acting out one young associate trying to go behind another one's back to steal a client, and them going, "We just don't do that." So we do a lot of fun things like that, but we don't tolerate the bad behavior because we recognize that that's not who we are. And it is a values-based firm, and the people here are phenomenal, and I feel very comfortable that if I see bad behavior because everybody has a bad day, everybody gets stressed, people join us with bad habits. But if we bring that up, we bubble that up, it gets handled. Not in a steel-toed boots, we're going to, wear you down, but we work really hard to bring them into our culture. When we have laterals come on, a lateral would be someone who's already had it their practice, they've worked for a while, they come in to join our firm. We actually have started doing a retreat where we bring them in and we really immerse them in our culture. And we talk not just about what we do, but why we do it. The first 6 months, they're trying to figure out what we're doing. So we wait until they've been with us at least 6 months, and then we bring them into our largest office, and we talk about the why behind that. We actually are expanding that to include additional sessions on our expectations around communication, billing values, all of those areas, delegation. Um, Starting in January, that's we actually started that planning cycle today. But it's important to us. Law Working as a lawyer is hard and it's very stressful. So tempers can get strained, egos can get inflated, and so we all have to kind of work together to hold each other accountable.
And the question I have, and I'm trying to relate this also to the listeners and viewers, right? That may also work in a s- stressful and pressurous environment. But my first question to you is, what do you think? Yes, I know that lawyers are under pressure, but so are many other professions. But yet, I believe that the law industry in particular has this, not, I'm not sure if it's a stigma, but has this thing attached to it where we all know, yes, it is a little bit of a, it can be a toxic environment, right? Where do you think that comes from?
Just like surgeons have a bit of a God complex, at least that's the stereotype, attorneys can fall prey to that. It's just when I say it's a stressful job, there's some reasons for that. We are expected to bring our A game every day. Our clients expect us to know all the answers, and they're placing their wealth, their livelihood, their families, their future in our hands, and that's a huge pressure point. And I come from a very diverse background. I started out in distribution and retail, moved into manufacturing, and then came into the professional services area with legal. I've seen toxic behavior at every particular organization I've ever worked in, from the smallest to the largest. People, if they're not held accountable, can act badly. But lawyers do get a bit of a shtick, and there can be a little bit of a um, persona. You see it on all of the TV shows. You never have the nice, gentle lawyer. You always have the larger than life, running roughshod over everyone. And that can be true. I've seen that happen. A lot of times they come in, they're so used to playing the hero and coming in with all of the answers that it's hard to turn that off, and it's hard to humble yourself and listen to someone else's opinion. Um, and then add to that the stresses of deadlines that are coming on, the new restrictions, what's happening in the legal industry. Our work is being commoditized by insurance companies, so billing is getting harder and harder. So they get pulled away from what they love to do with a lot of the administrative work, and that's frustrating too because that administrative work is important, but at the end of the day, it's their name and their license on the line for malpractice if they do not meet every deadline and answer every question correctly. They're responsible not only for their work, but for anyone that's working under them. And that's a big responsibility. It's no different than any of your C suites at any large company. It's a lot. And lawyers don't respond well to that. We're in the top 10 for suicide in the nation. 1 in 20 have reported anxiety, depression, and stress, problem drinking. All of those things plague our industry as a direct result of that.
Is that because of the high stakes environment, in particular coming from, depends on the law case, of course, but let's say coming from the actual families that's their livelihood is on the cards here and in the play?
I think it's a little bit of everything. It's harder and harder. We're in a litigious society in a lot of ways. The AI is introducing a whole nother level of complexity as this generation tries to figure out what that looks like and what that means, and how to harness that capability without losing what's fun and why you became a lawyer. Um, but there's also there are a lot of pressures. There's pressures from home, there's pressures from work, and there's pressures from the staff in the firm. Um, I see a lot of it, at my age, I am the epitome of a sandwich generation. Last year, I was taking care of my 87-year-old mother who broke her leg and ended up with a lot of complications and spent from July until December in and out of hospitals and long-term care facilities until we finally got her in a place where she was stable. At the same time, I was helping support my daughter-in-law and son as they ushered in their first child. So I was helping them look for daycares and dealing with, doctor's appointments and trying to help them out. I'm not the only one. And I realize that when I'm talking to our partners and our associates, and they're going, yeah, my father's ill and I need to go take care of them. I need to take some time off of work and I don't have time. I've got all these deadlines. So it adds a lot more to it. Life is really complicated for most of us. Most of us have someone we're taking care of. Unless you're living on an island, you've got those stresses on top of everything else.
Like I hear you on that, and at the same time, so does everyone else, right? And obviously not to diminish any of these cases, but I just want to again, like, there's something in particular in the law industry that is just different, I feel. And I think to me, as an outsider looking in, I think it is this, to me, it's like the threefold. And you tell me, right? But it is this. You mentioned God complex. I'm the one that needs to know, and I'm the one that is here in charge of what's happening. Number one, and how do we humble these people to kind of almost like work collaboratively? Because in my world, at least, collaboration trumps any individual performance, right? Or whatever it is, and that includes collaboration with the actual families that we want to defend, or whatever it is we do with them. The second one for me is that this piece around licensing and not losing the license and keeping up with all the legislation and changes there, which is a huge pressure. And then to me, the third one, it is about the pressure that comes through because I'm responsible for making sure that this livelihood of the family I'm defending right now is not falling apart. And how do I deal with this? Would you say that's kind of where it's at?
Absolutely, and add on that the layer that lawyers are in the 90th percentile on skepticism, so they really don't trust a lot of people to help. They, in a lot of ways, carry on too much because they're reluctant to delegate. It's really difficult for them because they're just not natural collaborators and delegators. Law school does not teach you to collaborate. Law school teaches you to study hard and be ready to have the answers individually. Collaboration is something we have to teach once you get into the workforce.
Hmm. Do you think that to me is so crucial, right? In a environment where all these pressures are already present, to me that's a real gap, right? Of like if I would see a lawyer that is able to delegate, that is able to handle one's own emotions the best he or she can, to be able to impress that calm and this calm, I guess, and this silent confidence, not being the hero, but actually putting the client in the hero seat and saying, look, I'm here for you and I'm confident together we can solve this thing. Do you think that's a real gap that you wish lawyers actually would learn about, maybe even at law school or early on in their careers? Or what do you think?
Delegation and collaboration are definitely skills that would help. With us, we defend more of a large entity. We have some individuals, but we are more of a defense firm for products. We handle real estate bonds, regulatory issues, health law, things like that. So our clients are not John Doe coming off the street usually. It's usually more of an entity, but you do have to build in that collaboration and that we're working on this together. Where their delegation where they struggle with delegation is having an associate work on something that they could do themselves. It's better for the client, though, because it's usually less expensive. It's better for the associate because they're learning a new skill. We literally are planning delegation training right now for all of our laterals and then, partners as well, because it is something hard to do. And we try to build in throughout our communications, our trainings, a lot of different training opportunities to put those skills in play. Also, for example, our executive chair during any of our monthly meetings, he'll take some of our values like innovation or teamwork or collaboration, and he will take examples of successes we've had recently, and he'll highlight them for the firm meeting so that we are demonstrating that the firm values that behavior and that it is an expectation because you've got to keep reiterating it over and over and bringing it up and reminding people this is what that looks like because those are fancy words, but until you really show someone what that collaboration looks like, what that innovation looks like, what teamwork across practice groups and offices look like, they really don't get it. 'Cause you're so focused and so head down. You're meeting your billable hours, you're doing business development, you're giving feedback to your associates, you're managing your staff, you're doing the administrative, you're doing your billing. I mean, all of that is huge. It's a lot.
I had no idea that this is because to me, the lawyer is the one that actually deals with the case and not with the administrative work.
There's a lot of
Interesting. On
it.
a side note, yeah, you see, like there's things that you don't even know, right? So interesting. Yeah, for especially for me as the founder of DoGood, where we help, usually small, medium enterprises to building this culture of collaboration where trust doesn't erode, where we can delegate and all that. Really interesting to hear that there's obviously And I believe that you having already this on the forefront of your, I guess, to-do list, you are far ahead of what other law firms or other in the legal industry is probably where they are at, right? Let's talk about this piece around, let's say, let's just use the case of you have a new lawyer coming on. He or she has to understand what Butler Snow is about and how you guys work. And now it comes to the 6 months mark and it comes to this cultural piece. This person may feel a little bit like a god, um, and doesn't like to delegate, isn't great at collaboration. How do you, like, if this toxic behavior is being displayed, how do you actually address this if this person in particular is a high performer? Talk us through like specific strategies or, I guess, cultural norms or methods you use inside Butler Snow that work for you guys.
I am fortunate, Butler Snow, that we have the support of our executive leadership. Um, I know that I can reach out and say, "Hey, I'm seeing bad behavior or I'm hearing reports of bad behavior and we need to have a conversation." Most of the time it's showing a mirror. It's holding up that mirror and saying, "This is not okay behavior. This is what your behavior, this is how it's impacting someone else." Um, in our case, it's rarely the screaming and the yelling or the cursing or anything like that. It's more the hovering and the micromanaging. So we have to hold up that mirror and say, when you do this, it creates these consequences and we need you to stop. Um, when you say denigrating, sarcastic comments about someone because they happen to not be there when you walk down the hall, this is not okay, and this is the harm it brings because other people hear that. That's not who we are now, we are.
And you are a leader, right? And you need to be an example type conversation.
Exactly.
Right.
And I've been at other organizations where I didn't like that tone. And I so told them flat out, well, until you decide you're fed up, nothing's going to change. Because if you're not willing to have a conversation, it's just gonna keep going and getting worse because you every time it's like if you have a child and you let them eat on the sofa once, it's just gonna get worse. It's not gonna suddenly they're going to go, "Gosh, I probably shouldn't do this on mom's new sofa." You've got to be consistent. You cannot let it slide one day and then the
So
next
how do you
day
keep up with that?
a lot of it is that open
Sorry, how do you,
door
because there's a lot
and
going on then, right?
it's the open door and
I
the
can just see you like you just move into all sorts of direction and just
you
with a
do a lot of
little
that.
loving whip, right?
You do a lot of that. You have to be careful. I call it the sit and spin. There used to be a toy that you sit on it and you turn the handle and you just spin around. And if you're not careful, you can get into sit and spin management. So you're working here and then you get distracted and you just keep spinning and hopefully you get back and finish. So you have to be really organized. First of all, I've got a great team. I've got people I can rely on. Our regional managers will elevate and escalate if they see something that needs to happen, that we need to have a conversation. When I first started with Butler Snow, before I got insanely busy, I deliberately went and toured as many offices as I could. I went to 17 of our 26 offices that first year. So I was on the road a lot because I knew that I needed to be a face. Um, I also work really hard, particularly with our staff, because they're the ones who are most likely to see and experience that disrespectful behavior. Um, I'm very approachable. I share about my grandson now that I have him. He's a great icebreaker. I shared about Um, my avatar on Zoom meetings, and I usually deliberately don't have my camera on at first, is my son's cat curled up asleep in a blanket in the sun. and you can see the smile on the cat's face. And everybody always makes a comment. And I go, well, that's my life aspiration, to be as happy as that cat is in that moment. It kind of breaks the ice. I deliberately did a lot of fun webinars the first 18 months, and now I've turned them over to one of my training team because I wanted them to associate my face with learning things like mental health and well-being and mindfulness and communication strategies. I wanted them to see me as a resource, not as, oh, they called HR. I've had it walk in when I walked into a um when I was working with the one organization, my mother used to tell people when they asked what I did for a living, she goes, "She fires people, she's good at it." I had to explain to her that's not all I did, but, when you walked into a room and, the person looks up that you're meeting with and goes, "Oh, shit," I'm like, "Please have a seat. We're not having a good conversation right now." But, it's worked really hard not to have that reputation because in an organization this size, because we're at 750 people, which may sound large, but it's still small enough that they need to have a lot of avenues. Yeah, in that other experience, I was working with 30,000 employees. I had levels who were that warm, fuzzy, open door face. My door was open, but they didn't know who I was. They only knew when I flew in, it was probably bad. Uh, but we, yeah, um, in this situation, though, we have a much smaller group, but we work really hard to train our managers to be open. I make it a point to, every time I'm having a conversation, point out our resources that we have for employee assistance, our employee assistance program, our counseling, um, we make sure our new parents know about our milk store program where you can ship breast milk back if you're traveling. We introduced this year a caregiver concierge service that has just been phenomenal. It has been so widely accepted. We've already, in 7 months, had over 50 cases initiated by different employees who need help, whether it's finding a daycare to um, finding long-term care services for a disabled person, or in one case last week, one of the partners was telling an associate about it and made the comment, "Don't insist that I call. I didn't think I needed to." And now they're giving my stepmother bereavement counseling because she lost her father that week. So we try to build in all of those resources along the way because we want to be seen as a resource for helping, not just a disciplinarian or a policy keeper. It's hard
It
because
is hard.
nobody wants
Yeah,
to
it
talk to
is hard.
HR. When HR walks in, all conversation in the break room stops.
Yeah. And that is kind of, I feel like where HR really has to, and I'm HR to some degree. I'm a learning and development expert, as you may know. I've never really been entrenched in HR. I've never seen myself as a HR generalist or professional at all. To me, I'm not about payroll. I'm really here to believing in the potential of humans, of people, and to getting the most out of them. I think this is so crucial.
That's
And
my
this doesn't mean, and the most out of them doesn't mean that we have to constantly kind of strive for more output or performance. It also means to pause, to listen, and to know when to it's time to just stop and calm down, for F's sake, so to speak, right? The question I have, because HR kind of, I feel like, walks this balance between benefits that people love, right? And then having to have these really difficult but yet very necessary conversations, which I believe you're very good at, right? To finding this balance, and you strike me as somebody who has over the years learned how to do that. And it's probably true to say that you haven't always been a person that is good at both, right? But how do you And what I have in my mind is like, how can you bring this, or other HR professionals or other companies, how can you bring this almost like this light-hearted attitude to even a difficult conversation where we say, look, it's not good enough. We need to have a conversation here. How do you do that in a moment when you have somebody with a God's complex and kind of somebody, I know it all, so to speak, and this has serious consequences? Take us through this real scenario. I'm just imagining somebody walking at the floor, having a, pulling out a sarcastic comment. Do you pull this person up right there and then? If so, how do you do that? Do you wait a day? Do you talk to your exec team before you start taking, like, take us into the practicality of how you approach these moments.
Typical lawyer answer, it depends.
I like it.
And it does. So
Yes.
I am a big believer of the Crucial Conversations book. So if you haven't gotten it, go read it. And it talks about deciding early on as you're figuring out how to have this conversation, what is the end result you're looking for? And you have to approach it from a place of heart, and you have to try to understand what might have contributed to this situation. I always like to think about from the other person's perspective, what might have gotten us here. It doesn't necessarily excuse the behavior, but it helps me understand and figure out the right approach. Is it that they had deadlines? Is it that this person is due and making a lot of errors? Is it that they just had a fight with their kid on the way to work or a flat tire? Is it that they feel disrespected or invalidated? What's the underlying issue? Because if I can start chipping away at that, I'll have a better success for a long-term success. The other thing, I do a lot of modeling of language without being obvious about it. So there are a lot of techniques you can use, but when I'm talking to someone and I go and they describe a behavior and they're thinking about their conversation, because a lot of what I want to do is not, I don't need to have all these conversations. Other people need to be able to have them as well. And if I'm partnering with someone for that conversation, we need to be on the same page. And so when we're talking through the situation, I will kind of mirror the words I think you say. So what I hear you saying is, and so obviously this is not okay behavior, and we need to talk about the consequences of this behavior on other people. And I'll start to use the language, and you'll use that same language a couple of times in different ways in the conversation. And before too long, they've adopted it. And it's become their language, and they've integrated it into their message. I also use talking points. I laugh and tell my attorneys this is Exhibit A in case we ever have to defend ourselves because this is what we said. I don't use them, I don't read them, but I have them because it forces them to read them in advance and think about what they're going to say and how they're going to say it. And they never say it exactly like I thought they would, but it starts to guide them and gets them thinking in that way. But it's constant reiteration. It's constant reiteration. And it's excuse me, calling people out when they are acting badly. When it's, I understand you're frustrated, but I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you have conversations like X, when you yell and scream, when you slam the door, it creates some concern, and you want this person to come to you. Um, there's been so y gosh, my second job out of college, so it's been a long time. There was something called Zinger Miller Frontline Leadership, and I don't think they're even in business anymore. But one of the things that in a training session that I was participated in as a young manager, talked about how to have those conversations. And the first thing it said is focus on the problem, not the person. And when
So
you
easy
can,
said and difficult to
it is, but
execute,
when
right?
you can take it away from you, and go, the tension in this room is making it very difficult for us to move forward. Yeah, I hear some stress. Help me understand what's going on. Um, there's problems in this document. Help me understand what's wrong with the document. Okay, let's see if we can figure out how to fix this. And then going forward, here's what may keep this problem from happening. Talking with someone recently about the art of trying to get attorneys to delegate effectively is, lawyers may delegate, but they may delegate really badly. So they toss this and
What's a
go,
bad delegation? Talk
oh,
me through that.
I need this,
Right.
done by tomorrow. I'm sure you can find an example. I've got appointments this afternoon. I'll touch base with you tomorrow, morning. And, the associate's going, "I've never done one of these. I
No
don't
idea what he's
know."
talking about or shit.
No idea, and so they're spending hours trying to figure out what on earth, literally, what is this? And what should it look like? And they're afraid to ask anyone because your ego's all caught up in this. So they're afraid to ask. One of the things we try hard to do is when you start with us as a fresh associate out of law school, you're assigned a mentor, and that mentor stays with you through your entire career because we never want you to be at a place where you're embarrassed to ask. Or you spend more time trying to figure out a definition than you do on the substantive work. Um, but delegation is an art, and learning how to delegate with enough information often doesn't happen, and that's where some of the tension comes on. I had to rework all of this. Well, let's figure out where that went wrong and what we can learn from that.
One question in my mind is, I understand the point that you made that, a new starter, a new lawyer has to find the ropes first, right? In terms of how you guys operate. I get all that. What is, in your experience, the reason that you wait 6 months, if that's even the way it works? But what's the reason you almost like delay? I don't know if delay is the right word, but what is the reason that you start speaking about these, to me, very crucial pieces like delegation, like what it means to be collaborative with clients as well as internally 6 months down the road?
We talk about it throughout. It's part of the quite frankly, it's part of the recruiting process, because it's what makes us different from other law firms. So we're talking about it throughout the process. But especially when a lateral comes on board, they are worried about keeping their clients because this is a disruption to their clients. They're trying to figure out where their files are because they have to move all of their files into a new system and learn a whole new process. They're trying to figure out how to bill their time. They're trying to figure out where the bathroom is, where this office was. I mean, it's a lot. And there's a lot of catch up work. You feel like you're just racing, and trying to get adjusted to the way we do things. Um, so that first 6 months really is consumed. You can only take in so much. So at 6 months, by then, they're relaxing a little bit, they're a little more comfortable, and they come into our largest office. We have our executive chair actually spends time and meets with them and talks through our history and our values and our principles and what makes us different. Chris does a phenomenal job of that. But he's also doing that in the monthly meetings. We're doing that in communications. We've made our values, which include collaboration, teamwork, and respect, part of the performance reviews. It is part of our internal newsletter. It is baked into different trainings throughout the year. So even if it's 6 months before you come in for that mini retreat, you're getting it all over the place. You're not
I hear
just
you.
getting it
Those
there.
little sprinkles.
It's just this is you're here for 2 days focused on yourself and your integration in with Butler Snow, and you're not doing this in the middle of 8 phone calls. We build in time that they go and deal with clients and deal with urgent matters, but when they're in that room, they're present in that room.
Yeah.
That makes a
Yeah,
difference.
fascinating. Yeah. Dawn, thank you so much for your time.
This was so
That
much
is
fun.
incredible. Yeah, good that you enjoyed that. So to wrap things up, I like to almost summarize things in my own head and thank the guests. And so I would like to do that with you as well. Um, it has been really insightful for me to talking with somebody because I don't get to talk about somebody in the law industry all that often, to be honest, right? It's one of many industries, and yet I think it is so almost like, not sure if misunderstood is the right word, but there are many moments where I thought I didn't know that you guys have to deal with all the admins, activities and so on. But yeah, thank you so much for all the insights, in particular around being frank and honest about that things that happen in other industries or in other companies in the law industry, that it is not different with Butler Snow. So first of all, thank you for that honesty. But you clearly have the emphasis on the right, pointing in the right direction in terms of really putting those fires out early, having those difficult conversations, making sure that culture is just taken care of. And yeah, that is really amazing. Congratulations on all the amazing work you do with your team. So
Well, I am
thank
lucky
you
to
for
have a
that.
great team and a great firm. And it's a passion. My personal passion is helping organizations and individuals reach their potential. And that means something different for each individual, and quite frankly, for the different organizations I've been a part of. But it's fun. I can't imagine doing anything else.
Amazing. Don, thank you so much.
Thank you.